How many of you remember your first day of school? Now, I vaguely remember parts of it, but I don't remember enough of it. As I get older, I wish I could remember it all. There used to be a great way of ensuring that we never forgot our first day of school. At one time, there was an unusual custom observed on the holiday of Shavuot, which has for the most part now fallen out of practice. This custom appeared in the writings of Rabbi Eliezer of Worms, who lived obviously in Worms in the Germanic lands, and he died in the year 1230, who tells about this custom in his work known as Sefer HaRokeach. He writes, "It is the custom of our ancestors to sit the children down to study Torah for the first time on Shavuot, because that is when the Torah was given." It's the custom to sit the children down and study Torah on Shavuot, because that is when the Torah was given. The boys, he writes, unfortunately, this is my editorializing, unfortunately in those days the girls for the most part did not study Torah, but he writes about the fact that the boys were brought at sunrise on Shavuot morning. They were woken up and taken at sunrise to either the home of their teacher or to the synagogue. And this was following the spirit of the biblical verse, which states that on the third day in the morning there was thunder and lightning. They were carried up, bundled in a cloak, so that they would not see anything which would distract them and cause their thoughts to be impure. And they were brought to the synagogue. And upon arriving at the synagogue, the child was taken to the teacher's lap, put in the teacher's lap, and the teacher produced tablets of letters. And he would go over these letters with the boy, who was for the first time learning these letters. And on each of the letters, honey was placed. And after the boy read the letters with the teacher, he would lick the honey off to teach him about the sweetness of the Torah. And some additional verses were then recited, and then the child was fed. After these additional verses was fed some honey cake and some egg, because it was believed that the egg caused a ptichat halev, an opening of the mind. Now this custom obviously contains great symbolism. The purpose of this custom was to set the child on a lifelong path of Torah study and to burn into his consciousness both the importance and the sweetness of a life of Torah study. Above all, it was to try to create a vivid memory that would forever remain in the child's brain, so that if the child ever wandered from the proper path, he would always remember who he was at his core. This little boy he literally consumed the letters of the Hebrew language. They became a part of who he was literally. And so no matter how old he would grow to be, he would always remember that at his core, he was Torah. Now, I am sorry that this custom is no longer popular. I think it would be fun to bring the children at sunrise to the synagogue to study for the very first time. I think it's a beautiful custom. It creates a memory that's so important for the children to have. But I am lucky enough, even though we don't have this custom anymore, I am lucky enough to have many personal memories that are so powerful and that are connected to Torah from when I was a little child. Here's just some of my memories. I remember staying up all night on Shavuot, even as a young boy, and studying Torah. I remember davening with my siblings in synagogue every Shabbos, davening next to them and next to my father. And one of my proudest memories as a young boy was when I was in second grade. I remember winning. This was one of my moments of glory. It sounds silly, but I remember winning the New York City Brachos Speech Championship. I'll never forget that moment. It inspired me. And I know that the person in front of me didn't know the proper bracha for cholent, and so I was able to win. He was a third grader, by the way. Now, these memories are seared within me, and they've taught me the vital lesson that my commitment to Hashem and to Torah must come above all else. Above everything else in the world, it must come commitment to Hashem and to Torah without exceptions. As a parent, that's what I'm trying to teach my children. Or to say it another way, I am trying to impress upon them the idea that our commitment to follow the path of Hashem is not an option to do when we're in the mood for it, but a responsibility that must define our lives. All the different teachings of the Torah can be broken down to this central message. Although there are 613 commandments, they all have a single root principle, which is the following. Following the path of Hashem is not an option, but an obligation. It's not an option, but a responsibility. The holiday of Shavuot teaches us this lesson. On Shavuot, when we stood at Sinai for the giving of the Ten Commandments, which according to most authorities actually happened on the 7th day of Sivan, on the second day of the holiday of Shavuot, fire and lightning came forth from the sky, and then Hashem spoke to us. And in doing so, He ingrained in us, through the fire and the lightning, and through the revelation, He ingrained in us this central idea of our need to commit to Hashem. This is the central idea of the Ten Commandments, which itself is central to our faith. How central are the Ten Commandments? According to the ancient Jewish philosopher Philo of Alexandria in his work De Decalogo, the Ten Commandments that Hashem spoke at Sinai are really the root principles that are the core of the entire Torah. All 613 commandments, according to Philo, can be fit into these 10 utterances. And so too, in classic rabbinic literature, we are taught in the Midrash that the entire Torah is found between each of the utterances of the 10 commandments. In the Beit HaMikdash, the 10 commandments were read every single day, up until the point that it was decided, according to the Yerushalmi Talmud and Tractate Brachot, that it was too dangerous to read them every day because some people might consider the Ten Commandments holier than any other parts of the Torah. And Rav Sadia Gaon, who died in the year 942, wrote that there are 613 letters in the Ten Commandments, from the beginning with Anochi and going to the end of the Ten Commandments of Lirei Echa. But I will say that my wife and I both counted it, and we saw that there weren't exactly 613 letters. So then we counted the second 10 commandments that appear in Deuteronomy. And when we did that, we noticed that if you add all the letters in the two 10 commandments together, you get 1,226 letters, which equals 613 times 2. So that's probably what Rab Sadia Gaon was referring to. But in any event, you see that it's 613 is encapsulated within the Ten Commandments. The number of mitzvot are encapsulated within the Ten Commandments. So we see that the Ten Commandments are central to the Torah. But we can break it down even more. According to some commentators, all we really heard at Sinai was the first word, Anochi, meaning I. And some say all we really heard was the Aleph, which has no sound. The Aleph literally has no sound, but the Aleph of Anochi. Thus, we can bring down our most central teaching, the Ten Commandments, to an even more central teaching, the I, the Anochi of the Ten Commandments. And we're going to follow up with what this means, and also with a powerful story about this on the next clip.